Good day and welcome to our lecture series in Inquiries, Investigations, and Immersion. This is Sir Robert T. Salvador, welcoming you to the month of April. And of course, welcome to the fourth quarter. And this time, class, at your best, go beyond limits. Alright, so what are our target performance tasks for the fourth quarter? Number one, we have our data collection and data analysis. You will begin writing your results and discussion and proceed with conclusions and recommendation of your research paper. Next, you are to submit the final research manuscript and perform in the final oral defense scheduled at the end of this month. Are you ready? Good. Let's proceed. So our objectives this week are the following. Number one, to conduct the data collection. Number two, analyze and interpret data using appropriate statistical tools. This afternoon, I will present to you the statistical tools that we use in interpreting and analyzing our data. Next, you are to proceed with writing the results and discussion and accomplish all research tasks that we have this week. Now I will present to you the topic on planning data analysis using statistics. Class, this is the session 1 of our discussions under data analysis. So you have to listen and absorb some knowledge and information you are to gain here and apply this in doing the data analysis later on. Right? So let us begin with the purpose why we conduct data analysis. So here are they. Number one, to describe data sets. Number two, to compare variables. Next, of course, in order for us to determine the degree of relationships and differences between variables. And finally, to predict outcomes or to answer our research hypothesis. So these all are the purposes why we conduct data analysis. Of course, we have to interpret our data and we use statistical tools. So this afternoon, you will learn the basic and the most common statistical tools that we use in analyzing and interpreting data. Let's begin with the types of data analysis. So we have three. Okay? We have exploratory, descriptive, and inferential data analysis. So what about exploratory data analysis? This is used when it is not clear what to present in our data. As researchers, you may use visual presentations or numerical presentations, most especially in exploratory studies. Okay, this is under exploratory studies wherein inconsistencies in the data, for example, missing values, invalid data, are possible. Okay, this is under exploratory data analysis used in conducting exploratory research. This time, the most commonly used data analysis is what we call descriptive data analysis. So you have an idea already because you are conducting descriptive studies, right? So what about descriptive data analysis? This time, this is used to describe, of course, from the term itself, descriptive, okay? To describe, show, or summarize data in a meaningful way. So we have our tables, right? So this is where we illustrate the results under descriptive data analysis. So it does not allow the researchers to formulate conclusions, okay? Because this is the task of inferential data analysis, to formulate conclusions or to answer our hypothesis. And we only answer our hypothesis based on our inferential questions. Okay? Inferential questions require inferential data analysis. Whereas descriptive questions require descriptive data analysis. Understood? I will provide you example later so that you will be enlightened when to use descriptive data analysis and when to use inferential data analysis. So again, the most commonly used descriptive data analysis are the following. So we have the frequency, meaning you count how many responded to an item. Next, you'll get the percentage, and then you rank them. Okay, frequency, percentage, and ranking. Next, we have the measures of central tendency. So these are three: the mean, median, and the mode. The most commonly used is the mean or the average of the responses, wherein you will also apply later once you have the data after your data collection, after you have collected the responses from your survey forms. And I know that you are now starting your data collection. Continue. Right? So we have the measures of dispersion as well. So we have the range. I know you're familiar with the range, the average deviation, and the standard deviation. So these are some of the commonly used descriptive statistical tools under descriptive data analysis. So we are to determine later which in our research questions require descriptive data analysis and which of our research questions require inferential data analysis. Okay, let's proceed. Okay, this time, inferential data analysis. It tests hypotheses. In comparison with the descriptive data analysis, we do not formulate conclusions. Okay? While under inferential data analysis, this time we test hypotheses to reach conclusions, meaning we formulate conclusions here and generalizations about the findings of our study. It could be a test for significant differences or test of relationships or significant relationships. And under significant difference, we commonly use the t-test and the one-way ANOVA, okay, or analysis of variance. Next, under the test of relationships, we have the Pearson's R, Spearman-Rho, and the chi-square. So this is a presentation lesson. Okay, this is an introductory lesson on data analysis. So next week we are to proceed with computing some basics of this data analysis given examples. Okay, I will give you some few examples coming from the survey forms on how to compute for the following data analysis or compute for your results using these tools, using these statistical tools that we have. Right, so this time let's proceed. Okay, these are sample descriptive research questions. And you know, when we say sample descriptive research questions, this requires, again, descriptive data analysis. Okay, for example, what is the level of knowledge and awareness of the residents of Barangay Mansilingan in Bacolod City on the current COVID-19 health information when they are grouped according to sex and marital status? Next, another descriptive research question. What is the extent of internet addiction among grade 12 students of Riverside College when they are grouped according to sex and strand and when taken as a whole? And finally, research question number 3, what are the suggested programs to help grade 12 students in research writing and instruction? So class, with the format of these questions, this requires statistical tools under descriptive data analysis because this again are descriptive questions. Okay, when we say descriptive questions, we do not test for significant differences here nor significant relationships. We are just trying to find out the levels, the data, the extent, wherein we use the mean, frequency, percentage, ranking, and standard deviation. These 5 are the most commonly used forms under descriptive data analysis. So for example, we have the mean or the average of a set of data values, which is it is the sum of all the data values divided by the number of data values. So it's like your general weighted average, okay? Wherein the sum of all values divided by the number of data values. So we will proceed with computing the means next week. So prepare because I will give you some examples of data wherein you are to solve or compute for the mean of the responses. All right? So we will use the Microsoft Excel as well in computing the means. It's a very easy class. So we are to have our coaching on data analysis next week. Again, our purpose this afternoon is the presentation. You are to gain knowledge on the different data analysis and statistical tools that we are to use in analyzing and interpreting your data. Of course, with the mean comes the standard deviation. Why is this always go along with each other? Because, class, the standard deviation is the measure of the spread or variation of data about the mean. Meaning, we are able to further analyze our data if we have the variation or the spread of our means. Alright, so you'll come to realize later once we have examples on how relevant is the standard deviation. Okay, so for your research questions like this, okay, for example, number 1, you are to group your respondents according to sex and marital status, and you're to test for the level of knowledge and awareness. You may use, for your research questions like this, you may use the mean and standard deviation. Okay, again, the mean and standard deviation for both research questions number 1 and 2. Sir, what about research question number 3, suggested programs? We're in our survey questionnaire or in our survey forms, we select all that applies to them. We allow our respondents to select all that applies to them. Meaning, for this type of research questions or for this type of survey questions, we will use frequency, ranking, and percentage, okay, as our statistical tool later on to illustrate our data in a 3-line table. Alright, so next week I will provide you examples on how to compute for the means and how to illustrate all of this in a 3-line table. Let's proceed. So finally, we have our sample inferential research questions. Okay, and inferential research questions, again, test for significant relationships and significant differences, wherein later on we'll formulate conclusions based on the results. For example, is there a significant difference in the level of stress of the senior high school students under modular learning when they are grouped according to sex and strand? Next, another example, this time significant relationship. Is there a significant relationship between the level of stress and coping mechanisms of the senior high school students under modular learning? So take a look at this. In research question number 1, inferential research question number 1, we test for significant difference. When we test for significant difference, meaning there are two variables concerned, 2 or more variables concerned. For example, under the sex, we have the male and the female. Meaning, is there a significant differences when we compare the results of the male and female? The same with strand. We have 5, for example, ABM, STEM, UMS, ICT, and industrial arts. Okay, so if we have the strands, we are to determine the significant differences among the 5 strands. In comparison, when we ask questions about significant relationships, it only involves our main variables or our factors. Okay, it's just like the level of stress and coping mechanism. Is there a relationship between them? So that's it. And this, again, inferential research questions require inferential data analysis. Take a look at this. So for the test of significant differences, for example, you have the sex and the strand. Okay, for the sex, we have male and female, meaning consisting of two different groups. We are to use the test. We have to compare means of the male and female to test for significant difference between sexes. Next, we have the ANOVA, or analysis of variance, or we call one-way ANOVA. Okay, this time this tests for the means of two or more groups to be determined at one time. Meaning at one data analysis, we are to determine if there is a significant differences or significant difference among the strands. Okay, this time it's two or more groups. So it's applicable that we use one-way ANOVA. If you are listening this afternoon, include this in your data analysis. Okay, if you are to test for significant differences between sex, male and female, use independent t-test. When we this time, when we determine significant differences between groups of two or more, for example, strands, we use one-way ANOVA. Copy. Okay, this time let's proceed with the test of relationships. We have three options for statistical tools under the test of relationships. We have the Spearman rank order correlation, or the Spearman RAW, which is expressed in ranks. Okay, when our data are expressed in ranks or ordinal variable, I'll give you some few examples next week. We use Spearman rank order correlation. What if our data is in frequency series, sir? Meaning we count the responses of our respondents per options or per choices. So this time you have to use the chi-square test for independence. Okay, this time this is used for nominal variable. But when you use Pearson's R, we use this when our data are expressed in terms of scores or in forms of ratio and interval. For example, we have the means. We use Pearson's product moment correlation, or Pearson's R. And this is the commonly used, okay, for the test of relationships, Pearson's R. Okay, if you are to test for significant relationships between your variables with means, okay, with the means and standard deviation as your data. Okay, when you express your data in form of means and standard deviation, use Pearson's R. Copy. So this are the test of significant differences and the test for relationships. Okay, for our inferential research questions. All right. To recap, we have the different tools under different statistical tools under descriptive data analysis and under inferential data analysis. And descriptive research questions, of course, require descriptive data analysis, while inferential research questions require inferential data analysis also. So under descriptive research questions, we have the following options. Number one, frequency. Next, we have the percentage, ranking. Also, we have the mean and standard deviation as the most commonly used descriptive statistical tools. While under the test for significant differences in inferential data analysis, we have the one-way ANOVA for the strands and independent t-test for the sex, male and female. And to test for significant relationships, we have three options. Okay, we have the Spearman RAW, the chi-square, and the most commonly used Pearson's R, or Pearson's product moment of correlation. So that's all for today. I'll see you next week, my dear students. Take note of our class motto in inquiries and investigation, as well as in practical research 2, Excelsior. It means ever upwards. Advance congratulations on your graduation. See you next week.